What is going on, everyone? Back again with another video. And this time, we're going to take a look at the 5 most haunted places in the USA that you should never visit alone. Now, if you have ever traveled around the country like I have, then you know there are plenty of locations that say they're haunted or have ghosts and things like that. But really, when you go there, it's just some old building that some guy came up to you and said, "Hey, my great-grandpappy died here back in 1927, so now it's haunted." That's not what this video is about. We're talking about places that are actually legitimately haunted. Places that even the bravest people don't want to mess around with when they're by themselves. Alright, so let's get into it. Number 5, the Stanley Hotel. Now, the Stanley Hotel sits high up in the Rocky Mountains in the town of Estes Park, Colorado. It was built in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley, who was one of the co-inventors of the Stanley steamer, which is an early version of the modern-day vacuum cleaner. When he built the hotel, he had no idea that it would become one of the most famous haunted hotels in the entire country. Now, the reason why this place is so haunted is because of an incident that happened in 1911 when 2 men were killed in a freak rock climbing accident while trying to scale the Long's Peak near the hotel. This created a dark cloud over the property from the moment it opened its doors and has been said to be responsible for many of the strange occurrences that have been reported there since then. In fact, Stephen King himself wrote a story about this very hotel. He wrote a book called The Shining, if you've ever heard of it. Well, the movie adaptation of that book is also number 4 on our list, but aside from the book and the movie, there have been hundreds of guests and employees who have come forward with their own personal experiences at the hotel. Some of these include seeing ghosts, hearing disembodied voices and footsteps, feeling cold spots, and even being touched by unseen hands. One of the most famous ghosts is that of a little girl who is said to roam the halls at night. Her name was Almeida, and she died in a tragic carriage accident years ago. Another ghost is that of a man named Joe, who was an employee of the hotel and died while working on the roof. He is said to haunt the 3rd floor, moving objects and shaking beds. Of course, this is all in addition to the 2 men who died during the rock climbing accident, whose presence is said to be felt all throughout the hotel. So if you're looking for a haunted hotel to stay at, the Stanley Hotel is definitely one to consider. Just make sure you're not afraid of heights, because with all of the ghosts floating around, you're bound to have a few close calls. Number 4, Eastern State Penitentiary. Now, Eastern State Penitentiary was once the largest and most expensive prison in the world. Built in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1829, the prison was designed to hold 2,400 inmates and was meant to be a model for other prisons around the world. However, the prison was plagued with problems from the start. The staff was poorly trained and the inmates were often subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. The prison was also one of the first in the United States to use solitary confinement as a form of punishment. This practice quickly became known as, quote-unquote, the Eastern State System. Inmates were kept in isolation for days, weeks, or even months at a time. This resulted in a number of psychological problems among the inmates, including paranoia, hallucinations, and violent behavior. As a result, Eastern State Penitentiary earned a reputation as a hellish place where men went to die. In 1913, the prison was officially declared overcrowded and unsafe, and in 1917, it was finally closed down. Today, the prison is open to the public as a museum. Visitors can explore the decaying cells and see for themselves the harsh conditions in which the inmates were held. However, Many people believe that the spirits of the inmates still linger here. There have been reports of shadowy figures and disembodied screams being heard throughout the prison. Some visitors have even claimed to be touched or scratched by invisible hands. If you're brave enough to visit Eastern State Penitentiary, just remember that you're not alone. You might just have some unwanted company. Number 3, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Now, Waverly Hills Sanatorium is a former tuberculosis sanatorium located in Louisville, Kentucky. The building was constructed in 1910 and was in operation until 1961. During its time as a sanatorium, it is believed that over 63,000 people died there. Many of those who died at Waverly Hills were young adults in the prime of their lives. They had been diagnosed with the tuberculosis and brought to the sanatorium in hopes of recovery, but most of them ended up dying anyway. It is believed that the spirits of many of these people, especially those who died suddenly or violently, remain on the property to this day. In fact, Waverly Hills is considered one of the most haunted places in America, and there have been numerous ghost tours and investigations conducted there. One of the most active areas is the old morgue. Here, it is said that the ghosts of patients who died here are restless and may even interact with the living. Another hotspot for paranormal activity is the basement. This is where the autopsies were performed, and many believe that the spirits of those who died here linger. Some have even reported hearing disembodied voices and footsteps down here. If you're brave enough to visit Waverly Hills Sanatorium, you might just want to bring a friend. After all, it's not clear whether the ghosts are friendly or not. What do you think? Have you ever been to any of these places? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps me out and I appreciate it. Thank you. Number 2, the Myrtles Plantation. Now, the Myrtles Plantation is a historic house in St. Francisville, Louisiana. It was built in 1796 and is considered one of the most haunted houses in America. The plantation was built by General Thomas Green and his wife Rebecca. They were wealthy landowners who grew cotton and sugar cane on their property. However, they also owned a number of slaves who worked on the plantation, and many believe that the spirits of these slaves still haunt the property today. In fact, it is said that there are at least 10 ghosts that call the Myrtles home. One of the most active is that of Chloe, a slave who was hanged on the orders of Rebecca Green. Another ghost is that of William Winter, who was shot and killed on the plantation in 1834. Then there's the ghost of a little girl who is said to wander the halls at night. She is believed to be the spirit of one of Rebecca Green's daughters, who died at a young age. There have been many ghost hunters who have investigated the Myrtles, and they have all come to the same conclusion. This house is definitely haunted. If you're thinking about booking a tour of the Myrtles, just be prepared for anything. You might just encounter one of its many ghosts. And number 1, the Queen Mary ship. Now, the Queen Mary is a retired ocean liner that is permanently docked in Long Beach, California. It is now a hotel and a popular tourist destination. But what many people don't realize is that it is also one of the most haunted places in America. The ship was built in 1930 and was one of the largest and most luxurious ships of its time. It was nicknamed the Gray Ghost because of its white paint job, but it was also said to be haunted from the very beginning. In fact, it is believed that the spirits of at least 35 people died on board the Queen Mary. One of the most famous ghosts is that of a sailor named John Petter. He was a stoker on the ship when it was in service, and he died in a boiler room explosion in 1934. His body was never recovered, but his ghost is said to haunt the boiler room to this day. There have been many reports of strange lights and sounds being seen and heard in the boiler room, and some believe that these are the work of John Petter and other restless spirits. If you're brave enough to visit the Queen Mary, be sure to check out the boiler room. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Well, there you have it. The 5 most haunted places in the USA that you should never visit alone. Which one of these places would you be brave enough to visit? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.